You don't want to worry about all those election judges who are too honest, right? They're too honest. You want to be the main computer, and you can do this in seconds. Okay. So we asked the question, who had access to these memory cards? Because that's where the root cause is, right? So we got the audit log to the computer that programs the memory cards. And what we found was also surprising. We noticed that the mobile ballot boxes, the one that was corrupted, was loaded on 11/21 and was logged out 10 days later with no log between there. So was that card logged in for 10 days? Were there entries missing for 10 days? Or was the main computer logged on for 10 days straight, 24 hours a day? We couldn't tell. So then again, we saw another one. The same card, the corrupt one, was logged in on December 1, that's early vote, and then logged out on 12/10. My computer logs off after 15 minutes. Does yours?
Yeah.
Why is the main county computer staying logged on for 9 and 10 days straight? That's a security breach. Who had access to these cards? Anybody. 24 hours a day. That's a huge, huge, huge problem. Okay. So let's go back. You gotta have 3 records to prove what the computer said we voted. You gotta have the tabulation. Well, that's corrupted. You gotta have the tape. Well, we don't have that. You gotta have the image. We don't have that. Never had it in the state of Texas. And we got the Secretary of State giving waivers to the tapes. And we've got counties with corruption errors. How do we know the results of the election? That's basically the framework of our lawsuit. And what we want the appeals court to do is rule that that cast vote record is not a legal ballot. Do you think it's a legal ballot if you look at the law? Absolutely not. Anybody with half a brain can see that that is not the same. Okay? But the implications are huge, correct? If the appeals court rules that that thing is not a ballot image, then the state can't use it to do recounts. Then I guess they have to load some new software that says keep a ballot image, or at least show them how to go get it on the equipment. Okay? The law says it, we need to be adhering to it. Okay, so let's take a step back and look at how this affects Texas and other counties. So here in Hood County, you have countywide polling locations, right? Not precinct. And so, are you guys printing the tapes on election day?
Yes.
Yes, you.
My county, no.
What county you're in?
Erath.
That's right. So we'll get there. Hang in there, hang in there. Look, we're talking about No. We need to come to your county.
You bet.
I know, we need to wait. Okay. So let's talk about Hood, okay? So Hood, you're printing the tapes during election day. God bless you. Thank you for doing that. Because what you have is a record before that card goes down and gets a problem or whatever, right? Good job. But you know what? You can't produce a ballot image. You guys need to call your county elections administrator and ask her to produce to you a legal ballot image. And she'll get a slew of emails from the Secretary of State claiming that cast vote record is a legal ballot. Well, you make the decision yourself. The Texas Election Code is written so we can understand it. You don't have to pay somebody to interpret what it says, okay? So, nowhere in the state is there a ballot image. Some counties are printing the tapes. They're countywide polling locations. Some counties are still doing precincts, okay? You've got a lot of counties not printing them. They don't print the tape. They're not printing the tape, they don't have the image. You've got precinct counties printing the tapes on election day, and you got many that are iffy. Some of them aren't consistent, and Dallas is one of them. Big county, you got it. Big county, Dallas. Okay? All right, remember that the Secretary of State who's giving waivers is actually giving waivers to their own handbook. You talk about inconsistency, okay? talk about early voting. Do y'all print the tapes for early voting? No, and most counties don't. There's very few counties that print tapes in early voting. Very few, but there's some that do. These are the ones that do not. Some do, some don't. Okay?
Laura, could we stop there just a second?
Yes.
Do you guys know what percentage of the vote came in prior to Election Day in Hood County? Matt, what percent?
Somewhere around half, maybe 45%.
Exactly.
Somewhere in there.
It's right around 45% of the vote is actually done prior to Election Day. So,
Right, and
go
so
ahead.
you have, great point, you have 45 to 50% of the vote with no backup record, guys. We're gonna get to that in a second. Okay?
I signed the backup record for the early voting.
Pardon?
I signed the results for the early voting.
And what was, are you your election judge or what were you? Okay, so the tape was printed for early voting and it was,
Tape being printed, but we did tabulate every vote with 3 sets of people there doing it.
okay, so the result wasn't printed.
Well, I signed off on the numbers.
So explain to me what the number was. Was it each candidate, what each candidate got in each precinct?
Right.
Okay, so you do print the tape in early voting.
Well, there was no tape. We had all the individual ballots and we tabulated.
Oh, you're thinking of absentee. Are you talking about electronic or absentee?
Absentee, early voting.
We'll get there. We'll get to absentee in a second. Okay.
All right.
Okay. So, waivers are going out to not print the tapes. There was another waiver sent out by the Secretary of State. You know, you've got electronic voting. You've got some counties that are doing paper ballots, and that's where these absentees come in. Every county does an absentee paper ballot right now, okay? The Secretary of State's office also waived the mandatory audit of those paper ballots for every county in the state. The law says you're supposed to do at least 3 precincts, hand count, audit the paper ballot result. And he gave a waiver to 254 counties with 1 email, not to printer. And this is the email. They're allowed to waive one particular political subdivision from doing this, not 254 counties at one time. So anybody here, the county chair or anybody in here? Okay, you should call your administrator and say, did you do the paper audit? And why not? Because it's just too cumbersome? That's a check and balance that's missing. So not only do you not have a tape and an image for electronic, the paper ballots weren't audited either. That's a problem. Yeah, shake your head, I know. It boggles your mind. Okay, let's step back. And I want you to think about the 3 times we can vote in an election. You can vote absentee, you can vote early, and you can vote on election day. And let's look at the records that are there. Even paper ballot, the computer adds up the total. We scan it. But you can look on the internet and there could be there's tons of videos about programming that equipment and getting a wrong number, okay? So, but what do you have? You've got that paper ballot as a backup, okay? Early voting, the computer tabulates it. Well, there's no image and there's no tape. Election day, the computer tabulates it. There's no image, and maybe there's a tape. So when is your ballot most secure when you cast it?
No. Mail in. Paper ballot.
Paper ballot. When is it least secure?
Early voting.
When are we told to vote?
Early.
That's right.
If you're a Democrat, vote early and vote often.
Yes. So, let me back up. So I want you really to think of the implication of this. When over some cases, half the vote is being cast, or there's no backup to prove what the computer said. Does that bother you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Will you ever vote early again? vote. That needs to be the message that needs to get out. Do not vote early, because that's where you can be most corrupted and most stolen. And I'll tell you what, there's stories in Parker County where election judges take the equipment home every night on election, during early voting. We have judges who have told me they keep the equipment in their car for a week in their trunk before early voting starts. I mean, there's no oversight. And we're human, and we like to take the path of least resistance. And who knows what can happen with that when we're not following very strict rules and we're not following the process that needs to be there. Okay. I'm going to give you a very good example of the problem with this early voting issue. How many here are familiar with the Houston mayor race? Anybody familiar with it? All right, you got it. Okay, so it's an interesting story. I was asked to analyze a lot of their data. And so what I did, I looked at Bill King. Let's go back. Let's see. Bill King was the Republican, and Sylvester Turner was the Democrat. Ballot by mail, which is absentee paper ballot backup, Mr. King won at 52%. So the Republican won ballot by mail at 52%. Election day, where they print the tape, he also won 52%, because there's a record. Guess what? In early voting, he lost at 47 and lost the Harris County vote because of early voting. And there's no backup record. I have had candidate after candidate after candidate tell me this story. I win ballot by mail and I win election day, but I lose early. Look at that. Well, you know what? There's no record. There's no image, and there's no tape. Anything can happen. So that's the consequence of early voting. Okay, and we're moving more and more people are voting early. And we're moving more and more to these countywide polling locations who aren't printing the tapes. And the reason the Secretary of State says don't print the tapes, hang on just a sec, is because it just takes too long. The tape is too long because there's too many people voting and you know, they're just voting from all over. I'm sorry. Hang on, let's do questions at the very end if that's
So
all
I
right.
just wanted to say, if you're one of the election judges here, they printed the tapes, how long does it take to print a tape?
On election day, how long does it print?
2 minutes.
10 minutes.
So there, that's what I was trying to.
You have to go from machine, the actual printing is 10 minutes, but you have to do the process for an hour. It takes us almost an hour. We're one of the largest precincts. But you're packing up everything, so it's called just,
You're working in parallel.
yeah, you're
Yeah.
doing other stuff.
That's
It's not that big of a deal.
That's right. That's right.
It's just running and you're packing up. It doesn't delay.
Yeah. There was a woman in Tarrant County when I gave this presentation. She goes, Miss Presley, the Lord told me not to vote early. I said, he was right. She was listening. I said, honey, you're listening. He told you. Yeah. So here's the deal. We are so worried about convenience in our society. What is more important in our elections? Is there anything more? Maybe your grandbabies are more important, okay? Okay? Our elections are it. If we don't have fair and honest and verifiable elections, we have nothing in this country. Absolutely nothing, guys. This is it. This is it. This is the most important thing. And I get sick and tired of hearing, oh, it'll take me an hour to close up, or it'll take me an hour to print that tape. You know what? I don't care. We have veterans in this room who sacrificed for you to go an hour. Okay? Done.
They get paid for it.
And they get paid for it. Okay?
$10.
So the question is, the big picture question is, can we put enough Band-Aids around this electronic voting? The thing is massively complex. This is why candidates have not done what we've done, because they didn't really understand it. They didn't understand how to approach this. Electronic voting is massively complex, and corruption can hide in complexity. Simplicity is how you get honest elections. So I've had people, I've kind of asked, for the last year we've been talking about this issue, this case. I've had people come talk to me, this is what we need to do, Dr. Presley. This is what is the simple solution. We have to cast paper ballots at the polling location in our precinct, and they're counted right then and there with a camera watching. Hand count them, okay? I know that seems inconvenient. No early voting, no absentee voting. But if you want to guarantee the accuracy of your election, we have to have simplicity. We can't have complexity. And I want you to consider that. And giving up some convenience to have an election that's fair. You know, we ask people of faith to vote. We are. Is it getting counted correctly? That's the question. And in some cases, I know a lot of state reps and representatives that we have supposedly put into office, and they don't listen to the voters.
That's right.
Do they know we don't matter? Maybe they do. Maybe they know we don't matter. Okay. So we're in this lawsuit, and we're the first candidate in the state who's filed such a case against these ballot images and against the not printing the tapes and the corruption errors. And I've shown you one way that this stuff could be hacked. There's hundreds of ways. This is just one. This is just kind of confirming what my intuition was years ago in electronic voting. When I was voting, you know, in the 80s. So I was here before electronic hit the scene. So this case is very special. We are in front of the appeals court. I have to say the judge in our case, when we had those corruption errors, we asked the judge, we said, can we get to the card that's corrupted? Can we take the deposition of the person who's putting this in 9 times on election night? And he said, no, you cannot get that. And he said, and by the way, Dr. Presley, you don't have evidence, so we're throwing you out of court. So we got thrown out with a no evidence summary judgment. I think I have evidence. There's a lot there. Okay? And so then we were sanctioned $40,000 for bringing a frivolous lawsuit. Yeah. And it was said in the courtroom they wanted to sanction us so that no other candidate would ever bring this type of lawsuit ever in the state of Texas again against these voting machines. Yes, it's in the court record. It's called the chilling of a plaintiff. And so there was a deal on the table. They sanctioned us $40,000. There was a deal on the table for my opponent who had 10 lawyers, 5 county lawyers, and 5 personal. The Democrat Party was completely paying for all of his stuff. I had 1 lawyer. And they said, there's a deal. If you will not appeal, we will not pursue the sanctions. Man, I said, we're going to appeal. I'm here today, and one is to tell the story and get the word out and have you pressure your elections people for a ballot image, and you make sure you print those tapes on early voting. There's nothing in the law that says you can't print them and save them, okay? You can't tabulate early voting, but you can get those things printed and get them down to the county as a backup for later in case there's a candidate that thinks something's happened, okay? You can do that. And so we're here to spread the word, and we're also here to ask for your help. This lawsuit's been massively expensive. We've had a $160,000 lawsuit that we wouldn't be here if we had the tape. Wouldn't be here if we had the image, right? But this is going on all over. This is not just about Little Travis County. So I'm here to ask for your help if you're interested in helping us with a donation. I have addressed, self-addressed and stamped envelopes. If you'd like to mail us a contribution, I have those. And let me pass this around. If you'd like to be kept up to date on our lawsuit, give us your email and your address. And if you're interested in donating, we have an envelope too if you want to give us a check or cash, whatever. But I need your address so I can document it on my report. But we're the first person who's ever done this. And I'll tell you, we were in the appeals court yesterday. They heard an oral argument yesterday. And we had 100 people in the room. And we had 11 counties represented, because I've been presenting across the state for the last year and a half. And people are not happy with what's going on with the Secretary of State, that their electronic equipment can't keep an image, and their judges are being told not to print the tapes. They've had it up to here. We've had it. We don't have representatives that are actually representing us. Because I'll tell you what, if there's a small minority that has an agenda, and they're pressing that on us, what's missing? The majority has balance, right? If someone's not doing their job, we get to vote them out.
Yes.
It doesn't seem like we can. Okay, that's where we're at today. So I want to close with this, and then we'll go for questions. But I want you to know, any computer can be hacked, period. I have had engineers work for me who could do it with their hands tied behind their back. I don't care what kind of security you put on it, okay? Results tapes have to be printed for early voting and election day. They have to be. You've got to have a record before that card goes down and leaves the building, okay? You have to perform the paper ballot audits that were waived by the Secretary of State for the whole state of Texas. You have to do this. You can't have wireless connections. Do you remember this time there were wireless computers hooked up? It's against the law to do that. So now you have wireless systems going in on election day. That's shocking, guys. You've got to store and produce an official ballot image for a recount for candidates who work really hard and have donors and volunteers that want the accuracy of that vote because they did all that work. And you've got to allow poll watchers to monitor any activity. And I'll tell you what happened in Dallas. We had this last primary, because we know where it's going on. It's going on at the main computer, right? So you could have a poll watcher at that main computer. We did. There were about 15 counties across the state. We had poll watchers trained up at the main computer. It's never been done before. We saw in other counties corruption errors. Dallas County wouldn't even let the poll watchers in to watch the computer. Wouldn't allow them. They were not allowed to watch the printer. And think about what goes on, okay? Early votes, sometimes for big counties, they get inserted on the weekends before the election, okay? Dallas County inserted all their early voting results on Saturday before the Tuesday primary. Seems problematic, doesn't it? So they weren't going to enter anything else into the computer until after 7 o'clock on Tuesday night, right, when the polls close. Our poll watchers were there. The printers hooked up to the main computer, and they wouldn't let them get close to it. They had to stand way back in front of a window. They saw the line printer start printing at about 3:30 p.m. What in the heck was going on at 3:30? Early vote had already been inserted. The polls weren't closed. A program was probably being loaded. And they told them to get out. When that printer started printing, they told our poll watchers to leave. They called the Secretary of State's office, and the Secretary of State said, "You cannot watch the line printer." And we have affidavits of that, and we're getting them to the right people to deal with that in Dallas. But our poll watchers were the first time this has ever been found and ever been seen. We're not messing around. We have the right. We know what our rights are, and we're going to stand up, and we're going to say they're being violated. And if we do not have fair elections in this state, we need to know. If this appeals court is not going to uphold the law, we need to know. That's our job. So, just bless you for listening. This is not an easy topic, and it's kind of wakes us up, woke me up, and I just think it's been a treasure to be able to deal with this. I think it's a perfect storm to have somebody who understands computers and not afraid of them to challenge what's supposed to happen. So just bless y'all for being here. Thank you.
Thank you.
At our county convention for the Republican Party, we put a plank in for the state to have paper ballots.
We did too in Travis County. We did. A lot of counties did.
Election coordinator, we wasn't thrilled with it.
I know.
She was saying, we're going backwards, this is not progress. But that's what we.
You got it. This is too important to abdicate to a piece of equipment. We have to step up. If we want our future to be what we want it to be, we have to be responsible. We can't be a victim. Okay? We have power, guys. Beautiful. Yes, sir. Mr. Bob. Secretary of State's given these orders. Same, well, it's elections director of the Secretary of State. His name is Keith Ingram, who works for Carlos Coscos, who was appointed, but Keith Ingram was appointed by Perry a long time ago, many years ago. He's a bureaucrat who's been there way too long. He's lost his way. He needs to go. And so I'll tell you what, the last straw was when they told the poll watchers in Dallas they couldn't watch the activity that they're allowed to do. That's a problem. So, yes, ma'am.
How long after the election can you go and inquire on the question?
Great question. You know, only a candidate can ask for a recount, and only a candidate can do an election contest. So, it's very strict timelines of, I think, 2 weeks after the canvass. Okay, you can do a recount, and then a month after that canvass, you can file a contest. So no other candidate can do it now. And I'll tell you, I worked with about 5 or 6 candidates this primary, and we had many of them, 4 of them, that also had issues like me. We tried to get them to file for recount and do a contest. They wouldn't do it. They were afraid of being called for a loser, and they were afraid of the expense of it. Okay? It's very expensive. But the big picture was it was just a lot of stress. They didn't want to deal with it.
Well, how long would you feel, say somebody wanted to be a write-in on the ballot? Is there a time limit for that too?
I don't know what the details are on that. I don't know what the details are on that. Yeah. Any other question? Yes. Yes, sir.
If your lawsuit is successful, does that mean every county in the state would have to buy new equipment?
No, it doesn't. It says they might have, when you think about HART, they're required to have this today, under the contract we have today. So really, it's a software upgrade to keep the image. They show it to you when you vote. They save it to you as the ballot style because you have to vote your ballot style. The equipment can do it. And I think it's there. I think it's there. And if it's not, it's a software upgrade. Done deal. Joe.
You say it was in their manual or
The patents.
Well, no, but they have a tangible thing that you asked for.
Yeah, I haven't talked about that. Yeah, so he's bringing up a good point. In our lawsuit, we asked them, because the e-slate is where all the stuff is stored. All the images are stored and you see it when you vote. We asked for the manual of that piece of equipment. And the county said, oh, we don't have the manual. We're like, what? You don't have the manual? You have millions of dollars of equipment and you don't know how to use it? Maybe if you had the manual, you could print a valid image. Yeah, hello? So the judge was like, well, they said they don't have it. We're like, judge, tell them to go get it from the vendor. And so that's when we started asking for these manuals, which probably had the information, and these are very proprietary. You know, we weren't going to put them on the web. We wanted to see if it could produce a valid image as required by law. They wouldn't give it to us. So we think we were too close. We were there. And then that's when we got thrown out of court, when we started asking about that manual. Minutes after we started asking and pressing for that, we had no evidence, summary judgment, you're thrown out of court. And by the way, you're sanctioned, and let's have a deal. They thought it was a scare tactic, the sanctions. It was. It didn't work. Yes, sir.
So what is your feeling about the appeals court, and are they like the other Travis County judges?
Great question. The Travis County, the Third Court of Appeals is very conservative. Those justices all lose their election in Travis County, but they win the other 20-something counties around it. They're very conservative. And so in the oral argument yesterday, we're very encouraged by this because I'll tell you what, it's in the law, guys, what the ballot is. It doesn't say you count cast vote record in a recount. I mean, that's just, and so they're concerned, though, because what is the implications? One of the justices yesterday said, well, does this mean that we're going to disenfranchise the people that did vote in your election? We're like, that's interesting. Well, we think the county disenfranchised them because they didn't keep the records. That percent divvying up, we can't trust it. The county didn't keep the tapes, doesn't have the image, had more ballots than names, and I can go on and on. They disenfranchised the voters, not our case. Yes, sir.
Okay, I've got 3 questions.
Yes, sir.
All right. Who is the Secretary of State?
Carlos Coscos.
Okay, 'cause I'm gonna get this information before you leave here.
Yes, sir.
I'm gonna write it down right now. Carlos Costa?
Coscos. You can find him on the web.
Okay, is he elected or? is
He's
he
appointed by Abbott.
Okay. Now,
And Keith Ingram, who's giving the waivers, works for Mr. Coscos.
Okay,
And Ingram was appointed by Perry many, many moons ago.
well, it sounds like he needs to be replaced.
He needs to be
All
replaced.
right, in Dallas, who has the power to stop the poll watchers?
Nobody,
Okay, then why did they have to leave?
because they were told to leave, and and you cannot, and I was on the phone with these guys for hours, and by the time they were out of there, they were exhausted. The intimidation was overwhelming for them,
Okay,
overwhelming.
what is the judge's name that's your case again?
Our trial court judge was called Dan Mills, MILLS. The appeals court justices are Goodwin, Puryear, and Field.
And this is where you're at now,
We're in the appeals court, and we had oral argument yesterday.
and you feel good about it?
I feel very good about it. Yes, they didn't want us to get here.
Well, just hang in there.
I am. I am.
This is the most dangerous thing in this country.
You got it. We know that. This is it, guys. And I'm gonna say one more thing, and I'll get to you in just a second. This is the root cause. I, was into engineering for so long, and if you work on the ancillary problems, it's kind of like whack-a-mole. This one pops up, this one pops up, this one pops up. But this is the root cause. Because if we don't have representation and accountability to us, we've got nothing. This is the root cause, guys, in this state.
We may have been winning elections all along.
Exactly.
Weren't we?
Who knows? But if you don't have the backup records, you don't have, the door's wide open for fraud.
Right. Yeah.
Come on in, have a seat, have some iced tea, okay? Yes, ma'am. Jason, you're next.
It's not a question, I just want to thank you.
Oh, you're so
Thank
sweet.
you, for what
You're
you're
so
doing.
sweet, thank you. It's been a challenge, yeah.
This year, we did vote precincts and
Right,
countywide, it was all over.
I know. You lose accountability that way. You do.
How come we got our election person allowed that to happen?
The
Because
county
you
commissioners.
have precincts.
The county commissioners made that decision. That's right. Yeah, because I tell you what, let me tell you this.
You've got all their phone numbers on that piece of paper.
Yep.